Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket sevens. In this hand, we have the cutoff, limps. In this 10 NL game, we have 8 players. He is looking very, very passive, 37-2. We can see raise first in stat is really low, 2%, 2 out of 82. We have a raise, 1 out of 10 in the cutoff. We have a raise, 1 out of 5 in the small blind. And then his limp first in is basically how he's playing. So in this mid position, I'm going to give him like 36%, something like this. You know, your suited aces, suited kings, broadways, connectors, one gappers, suited one gappers. We can give him, offsuit one gappers as well to bring him up to like 39%. It could be that he's just more heavy in the higher cards and less on these low cards. But who knows? We're going to go with 40%. And then it's on me. And I look at the ISO raising range. So this is button ISO, always ISOing. This looks about right. When we look at pre-flop stats, he limps. We've got limp, raise. Let's see here. Where is the fold? Cold call. He's not facing a cold call, but his call is about 25% here. So I'm gonna guess that he's limped and then he's had someone raise behind him. So I raise the 5. I think that's standard. Button or the blinds fold, and then this guy calls. Would he call with anything different? I will. I'm gonna tighten him up. So you saw he called about 25% of the time. We're going to strengthen his range a little bit. Oops. Maybe something like that. Still, I want the pocket pairs. I do say I think he's going to raise first in queens plus ace king. He does have a small percentage of raise first in. It kind of makes sense if he's playing something super strong like this. Flop comes down 6-5-2. So we've got an overpair, not a big overpair, but we have an overpair and we have a backdoor straight draw. Villain checks. Villain has a whole lot of cards that miss. I think we are going to be c-betting here, especially when you see his fold to c-bet stats actually fairly high. So out of position, it's only 36%, and then it becomes 50%, 1 out of 2. Small sample size, but I think with this board, I think he's going to generally fold. If he doesn't have anything, he might call with like an ace. So if we dodge an ace, we could probably 2-bet here. Fairly safely. This isn't necessarily GTO, but we're trying to play some exploitative poker here. So basically, overcards we're betting, 2-card backdoor flush draw we're betting. I think it's kind of hard not to bet 100% here. Because if we don't bet 100%, then we're giving up way too much. We're allowing him to catch freely. And I think, when we bet, he's going to be folding some of these hands like the queen 9, queen 10, king 10, jack 10 hands that really aren't going to improve. And that's good because we don't want to see one of those middle cards come on the turn of the river. So we make our c-bet, and I actually bet a little bit larger. I'm not sure if I like that. I think this player like this is going to fold to a half pot bet just as often as he'll fold to like a 1/3 bet. So we could bet 4, we could bet 3.5 here, and not worry about it. Heck, we could bet 5 since we since we ISO raised to 5 big blind. We could bet 5 big blinds again. I think we'll get the same amount of folds. I don't think betting larger is going to encourage folds, although I understand why we do it, because my range should just, be much, much stronger than his range at this point. Because we also have 7-8, we have 5-6, we have 5s and 6s. He does too, but we also have all of the overcards. So I understand betting larger, and betting larger might be the way to go. However, on a looser player like this, I don't think it's necessarily going to matter. If it does matter, then we can look at what types of hands is he just going to call with. And to do this, his pre-flop stats look very passive. So I'm going to look at his flop stats. He does float 2 out of 3. He check raises 1 out of 22, raises a C bet 1 out of 16, raises a C bet on the turn 1 out of 4. On the river, he 3 bets 50%, he donks 25%, bets 45% of the time. So he generally, I think he's passive, but if he's looking for a draw or looking to connect, and if he connects, he probably calls. So I'm going to give him any pair, including these bottom pairs he's going to call with, and then he's going to call with your open ender. We're going to say the gut shots. I don't want all of the back doors or all of the overcards. So with the overcards, we're going to give him, let's color code this, we're going to give him all of the aces. We're going to give him the king, queen. And I think that's it. So 64%, I think maybe call. So that's what we're going to do, especially going larger. Ace turns, that's a bad card. I'm just going to say I think that's a bad card. Yeah, it could, I could be doing it with the aces, but when you think about all of his hands, once that ace comes, his top pair hand jumps up to 26%. He had, I think, a lot of players that'll will float with the ace. So he checks. I think with the sevens, it makes sense that this should improve our equity with that overcard. So we should bet again, but again, knowing that a lot of players will float with an ace X hand, tends to argue that we should be checking. So for us, I think we bet top pair. I think we bet not all top pair for values, probably ace king, ace queen for value, 2 pair plus for value. And then I think we go flush draw for value, or flush draw as a bluff. Open ender straight as a bluff, and gut shot as a bluff. I think probably both gut shots, something like that. I think everything else we're going to be checking behind. I bet, and again, I bet on somewhat of a larger size. So like 14 and a half, about 14 and a half should be half size, half pot. We went on the larger size, and I think that's probably okay if I have this because we're targeting the aces. We're targeting the aces with the call when we have our value, because we figure that if he's gonna call with ace X hand, we should have him beat with the ace king, ace queen. If he shows up with ace king while we have ace queen, so be it. That's just how it rules. But I think that's what we're targeting, so I'm not totally against going larger here. He calls. So now I messed up. I think I should have just checked behind with the sevens, even though, GTO I think says to continue betting with this hand. He calls. So now at this point, I think we are narrowing his range. I think the draws that he has is the flush draw, open ender, and then I think he's got top pair plus. I don't really think this pocket pair less than the top card is gonna call here. Could be wrong, but we'll throw it in. The difference is, basically calling 47 or 48% of the time versus 63% of the time. I don't think a player like this is going to do that. So we've got his range. He's probably ahead of me now, but when we bet, we make that range. Now we're realizing, okay, we either have to connect with our diamond, with our straight, or we need or we're already ahead. So 6 of diamonds comes, villain checks. I think he's probably gonna check everything. I think the only time he might not check would be maybe if he has a full house or a flush, because he does lead. He does donk a bit because he's afraid of not getting paid off. Or maybe he leads with the top pair type hands. I think quads checks, full houses checks, flush probably checks. I bet twice. There's probably no reason to think I wouldn't bet twice again. So maybe he checks all of these. Let's say he checks all of those. So he's got at least the top pair type hand. I think he probably calls with all of them. He also has the weak hands. So I think he folds 17% of the time. I don't think we're going to have a bluff. I think we check behind with these low aces. I think we bet with ace king, ace queen, and we go for value. I think most of his range is that ace x hands. I think we go for value with everything else. I don't think it makes sense to bet as a value or even as a bluff. I don't think we're getting enough folds. We'd have to bet like really small to make that 17% fold a profit spot. So I check behind, which is good. I think I should have checked behind on the turn with my sevens, but I chose to bet instead. So I checked who he showed. He shows ace jack. We have that in his range. It's there, not a surprise. So, we save money. I think on the turn, we check behind. We save that 18 big blinds. We save that because then I think he bets the river, and we really can't call. Not against a guy like this unless we think he's over betting. So, he does probe 25% of the time. I mean, showing weakness, he could bet. He's done 25% of the time, 1 out of 4. He's bet, 45% of the time. That could be when everyone checks to him, he bets to get some value. So he could have done that, and since he's out of position, it's hard for him to do that. But overall, I think I messed up this hand by betting that turn. I shouldn't have bet the turn. So we're going to take some notes on him. I'm sure that ace jack was on there. Limp and called a raise. Oh, it looks like he has all of the offsuit aces. Queen 3 off. That might be from the blind. But yeah, all of call a raise from the blinds range. Queen 3. Yep. So he had even more aces than what I was putting in his range here. So we're gonna LFI in cutoff and call ISO raise 5 big blinds with ace of hearts jack ace of hearts jack clubs, and he's out of position. He check called check on a 6 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 2 of spades, ace of diamonds, 6 of diamonds. All right, so messed up this hand. Shouldn't have bet the turn. I would have saved myself some money against a better player, a thinking player. Let's see. He's marked as green. Yeah, more on the passive sides. Against a player like this or like this, based on those stats, I'd be a little bit more hesitant. Maybe that guy. I'd be a little bit more hesitant not to bet the turn, because I think they're going to float a little bit more, and then once the ace comes, there's no guarantee that they have an ace in that case. We could bet, and we could probably pick it up. For that, I think ace, king, queen, or jack, any of those overcards come, we bet. They either catch it, or I catch it, or we both catch it. So, we're just basically playing a game of chicken at that point. Did I catch it? Did you catch it? And so forth. But against a player like this, I think he's calling a lot with just his ace X, and he's dumping a lot of the other overcards. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another.